Hey folks, welcome back to the Coal Iron Collaborative series of videos we are making here at Coal Iron Works. Today I am super stoked to have my brother in life, my friend, colleague in the craft out to the shop, Mr. Josh A. Weston. Brother, thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I think we're gonna make some cool stuff.
We are.
And I'm really grateful to be included in this series.
Well, thank you for being a part of it. I'm David DelaGardelle. I'm the owner and operator of Cedarlore Forge and the marketing strategist here at Coal Iron Works. I love collaborating with my friends at Coal, and what better way to show the products that we have to offer than to create some educational content that can really bless and benefit the world. Whether or not you are a Coal Iron Works press owner or not, we want to create content that we wish we would have had when we were starting out in the craft. Yeah. So I'm jealous of you guys. It was a lot harder for us to, we were talking about that a bit ago. It was a bit harder to scrounge up knowledge about sword making, axe making, whatever you want to call it, back in the days, because
there was a lot of text, but not as many photos and videos going around.
But yeah, Josh and I connected on Bladesmith forum, and then we met at Blade Show a couple years ago in Atlanta, Georgia. But yeah, we really immediately realized, okay, we share not just bladesmithing, but like aesthetically we're interested in a lot of ancient art, a lot of history and mythology, and how we weave that into practical bladesmithing. At the time, when I first met you, one thing I realized was you were obsessed with, and still are, with Celtiberian war knives. And he's infected me with the same just interest in these weird, bizarre, alien-looking knives. Yeah. And these knives originate to, Celtic tribes. But actually, give us a little bit of context as to what these Celtiberian war knives are, because spoiler alert, it's what we're going to be making today. So,
so it's a weapon that was popular across the Iberian Peninsula and through the Germanic tribes. Mm-hmm. It's not a super long weapon, and there's sort of two schools of thought. Archaeologist type thinking is that it gets labeled as a war knife, and so it gives this idea of it was used in battle and it was like a cutter and slasher. Yeah. And then there's this other opinion that goes, no, that doesn't look like it could really hold up to that, or it's ceremonial, it's for cutting up the pig for the feast after the victory, the chieftain used it. There's these two schools of thought. Which one's right? I don't know. What I can say is I have made a decent amount of these now, and every time I get closer to the originals, the feeling in them is that they are alive. Yeah. They're actually incredibly functional. They don't look like they would work well in your hand, but once you put them in your hand, you're surprising. You go, oh my God, this is incredible, and I could win a fight with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's a super weird, unique, just odd design that most people aren't aware of. And so this is one common grounds that you and I have always shared inspiration, and we love these odd, ancient designs, and taking some inspiration from history and then weaving it into our own work, whether it's fantasy or modern or whatever, and just having fun with it, making it our own. Yeah. And so historically, we're looking at 14 to 20 inches, on the larger side. And so, of course, though, if you're gonna come all the way out here and you're here and we're gonna forge something like this, then we gotta push it to the extreme. We're not just gonna forge a simple knife. We've also got beautifully made hydraulic forging presses from Coal Iron Works at our disposal with all the dies and tooling we can possibly dream of. So I'm like, Josh, if we're gonna do this, we gotta make a freaking sword, just a space age level. This thing has to be a cleaver for giants or for some non-human entity. So there were iron examples, I think, like you mentioned. There were bronze ones as well. And if you guys follow my work on Cedarlore Forge and the blades I've been crafting the past couple of years, really, one material that I've fallen in love with is aluminum bronze. So I've made a handful of aluminum bronze blades, and I love this material. It's so much fun to work with. Now, historical bronze blades, most of them were obviously cast, not forged. But the weirdness of aluminum bronze is it acts like steel. I mean, when in the forging process, it very much acts like mild steel almost. Obviously, it's not gonna get as hard as a 1075, 1095 hard carbon blade like we would normally make, but it's pretty surprising how tough this stuff gets. It's also way quicker and easier, more forgiving to forge, as long as you don't get it too hot and melt it in your forge. So we're gonna be forging this sword out of this chunk of aluminum bronze we have here in the shop. It's pretty expensive stuff. It's not cheap to work with, but for this project, I think it's well worth it. My good friend Nathan Brandt, co-owner and founder of Coal Iron Works, he loves making bronze hammers out of this stuff. I've been making blades, and so I figure let's go big. Let's make something super large and ambitious and see how far we can get. Now, to give you guys more historical context and to show you some visual examples of sketches we've done. So Josh and I, we let loose on the chalkboard over here. We've got some designs made. So that's the first step in the process. Before we fire up the forge, let's talk design and approach overall. We'll kick this off and get started.
Awesome. Let's do it.
All right, so Josh, can you take it away and kind of give us a run through of what we've sketched here? Obviously, you've got some step-by-steps. These are some rough designs I did, a little bit off the wall, crazy, wacky direction we might be taking it, but would love for you to give more historical context and explain the process of how we're gonna forge it.
Yeah, exactly. So this piece is inspired by, and this is a tracing of a piece that's in Rothenburg, Germany. Lovely museum there. So what we've got are these concept sketches of where we're going to take it to, and those are great. How do we get it there? That's all sort of over here. So what I've done is documented the process that I've developed over time to get to this, and we're going to identify where we're going to have to make modifications so that we can get it to that. But starting here is where we need to be. Now, one of the tricks is because we're going with the globular grip, which you can see right here, you're going to want to make an isolation already from your material. Now, if you're just doing this standard size one, you don't need to forge this lip down there. However, because we're going to get fancy with that, we're going to leave a chunk in the heel. This is then going to be forged down into a small protruding section that is roughly just a smidge over what we want that globular grip to be in size. From there, we're going to move a little bit of excess material to the end. We'll start to take that and isolate that with fullering dies and create a chunk off the end. From there, we will round that out, or traditionally I round that out. What we're going to do is we're going to round and flatten that into a little bit more of that, what would you call that? It's almost like a budding flower shape.
Yeah. Oh, you mean what I sketched here?
It's like a rosebud that hasn't fully bloomed yet.
Yeah, so I should give context. I mean, Josh, obviously, is studying the historical designs. His brain is, far more fixated on those, which is beautiful. And this was my rough attempt. But even this is not super historical. This kind of feature is not seen on historical ones where it kind of flares out. And I way overdid the ring and the curvature. But, I think it'd be fun if we aim something at a little bit more wild. And yeah, it's kind of, now that you say like a rosebud type shape, still ring-like, having the hole. I think we should punch that through.
Punch that hole.
With the same tools that we use here at Cole for hammer eyes and axes and stuff.
At this step, we'll sort of run that out. We'll forge that to more of that rosebud shape, and then we'll punch our hole in that. And we'll refine essentially this whole section leading up to there. If you don't do that, if you isolate over here before you do that, you end up with a weak spot over there, and that develops cracks into the blade. So you have got to wait on this until this is basically at final shape. Okay. Then you try not to touch this while you forge out the rest of it. Okay. So from there, and you want to keep things, you want that hole to be a little undersized initially and to grow it to what you want to be. You really have to air everything on undersized there and both here, because when you're using dies, it is really easy for the dies to grow inside space further than you want it to go. So for example, you take this punch into that hole, you squish it a couple times, there's going to be some judging. So if you're using a die that's exact what you want your final dimensions to be, it's going to be too big. Okay. So you want to use undersized dies to get to that final shape. All right. Then you would come down here, you get your ring to final shape, and then you're going to isolate the right side of the glob. To do that, you're going to use a fullering die up where the index finger is going to sit. And then we'll actually have to build a special plate that shifts this. This is where a lot of people struggle. And when they do that, they either use a flat surface and then it's all up here, and then you end up with a spot there that's a little too thin. Which is what we ran into on the first kind of just playing around. The last time you came out, we got it too isolated and small. Or you also end up with a handle that ends up coming off the blade that. Which is no good. And that's not what we're forging either. So it's important to have a shelf die made, and it can come out a little ways and then generally curve off, which will sort of push an imprint in your piece, but that's a lot easier to get out than a hard square.
Yeah.
So these are just some things that I've picked up along the way that help to make this a little bit more successful.
Yep.
Then when we go to start fullering from here, we'll be pulling this piece down. We'll do some fullering here to push that down, but we're gonna leave that full thickness. And then we'll do more here to draw the blade length out. And then we'll take that isolated chunk and we'll use really small, very specific dies to then pull this shape out here, which will probably forge it to just be something like a blob.
Yep.
And then we'll grind that down.
Yeah. Cut and
to the
grind.
shape that we want.
Yeah, we could even hot chisel cut it, you know, since people will love to be the, oh, you're cheating by grinding too much police online.
Right. I try to err on the side of forge more, grind less, just
of course.
because I don't like grinding very much.
Same here.
And then, so over here on the tip, this is sort of standard stuff. Most people are going to know this. Just dies down. And a lot of beginners, though, miss this point of forging tips out, and they'll start forging right at the tip. And if you move this die to the tip and do that, it gives you this shape. And now you've got a crack right in the middle of your piece. However, if you start just back from the tip, leave just a little square here, a little square there, what it's gonna do is it's gonna push like this, and it actually in the center causes the metal to move out and creates a mushroom effect on the end of that bar. Then you can take on the next one, you can squish right on that mushroom and push it right down to there. And from there, it's really easy to hammer that out to a perfect tip. So.
Yeah. Very cool. Another cool design feature that Josh and I wanted to highlight and show you guys is that on a lot of these historical blades, especially in the hilt region, right, like around the kind of bulb and whatnot, they had these geometric motifs. Now this is my own rendition. That's not a one-to-one historical example. You sketched that. But that is something that's kind of like seen as a shallow design decorative feature, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna grab this little thing real quick.
Okay.
It's hard to see it in here, but this is a scan. There are there's these little geometric lines. Yeah. And I have some Photoshop work that I've done to change this that I can get a better view of them. But they run all along the spine, which is actually pretty thick. It's about 3/8 right there.
And this is a 2-scale 1-to-1 ratio size of...
This is as close as I could get it without the museum actually communicating back. I have asked for the measurements of this. Yeah. I took a lot of photos while I was there. Sure. And it's as close as I could get it based off of...
It was bronze as well?
Yeah, this was bronze.
Cool.
And so, yeah, very shallow scratch marks almost, and they go all around the ring as well.
Very cool.
Which is pretty cool. Probably hard to see this because of the reflection.
Sure. But yeah, all that to say, we definitely want to go pretty wild and elaborate and bring some of those historical motifs, maybe to an extreme level, and really highlight them on this sword. So that's the overall game plan. A lot of this is going to make sense, of course, in the moment as we have the bronze hot and you guys can actually see the dies in action.
This also is another trick. Now, it's going to be a little bit different with the piece that we do, but if you're trying to make the historically accurate one, this is a taper from here to here. So see the different sizes there, and it actually is pretty smooth right through the middle. And what this helps do is, first off, it allows you to have the thickness and the strength in this transition, but it also moves vibrations through. They get very eaten in this glob, which is great, but then they will just kind of move around and get lost in this ring. If this ends up being smaller than this, that reverb and the vibrations actually sit here, and then you feel more impact in your fingers, and you're not moving the vibrations through to the geometry that actually makes this incredibly successful. Yeah. That is one of the most trickiest things for me so far, is making sure that we have the taper from here and there, and some I'll have this big ball in the middle of it. So we'll just do what we can, get it as good as possible, And hopefully this turns out really nice.
Very cool. To give some context to, what we're actually aiming at this being, it's fun. I know you definitely relate and resonate with me on this, Josh, in that we are both kind of narrative storytellers in every blade we make. We don't want to just make some random sharp, pointy object. We want to tell a story, more or less, or like inspire a story, at least suggest that there's a bigger story or a narrative with every piece we make. And personally, I just think that's so much more fun and rewarding. Yeah. So with this guy, my thought is, okay, these Celtic tribal war knives, there's so much we don't know about them. But what if, these are based off of something way more ancient that's forgotten by time and history, whether it's like, pre-flood, antediluvian, or some non-human species, just some weird, wacky backstory. And of course, being, like a Tolkien fan, this, could something like this be from like an elven culture or, a race of giants that just was so fearsome but forgotten by time? That's kind of my thought of like, what if this was what inspired historical cultures to make that? Of course, complete made up BS, just for fun. It's our own story that we're weaving into this. Right. But that's the joy of it. That's the fun. And that gives us some creative freedom and leeway room to, of course, take notes from the historical ones, but weave our own wild, extreme, goofy thoughts into it, which I love it. I think it's fun. Kind of unintentionally, it seems to have like a little bit of a lunar motif to it, with like the crescent moon and some geometric shapes that could look like stars or star maps or something. And I think stuff like that is just a lot of fun. I guess I also want to highlight, the cross sections is really important. I drew this as, a rough aim of what we're aiming at for the thickness, because the problem is things get too thin, and this being bronze, it is soft at the end of the day, so we got to leave it thicker than we would a steel blade, just so that there's no risk of warpage. Even if nobody's going to take this out into battle, we want it in theory to be functional. But what were you thinking in terms of motifs and designs? Anything that you want to add?
No, I just was loving where you were going with this, because you had put this moon, this little star-like shapes throughout here, and then as we were looking over this, it really, to me, it feels like this outer shape is some sort of moonflower, like some like a magical thing that only blooms under the light of the like silvery. You have to like. There's such those cool moods, and it's just an amazing thing. And I could see like just a little sliver over here, and then it's like you got these like fading planets over there.
For sure.
I don't know. I just like it.
I'm kind of worried about the whole guard area. I'm not totally married to this idea. If we reach this point in the process and it's too complicated, or if it's just uncomfortable. This is, I wanted this to be to scale, but this is definitely a little bit bigger. Maybe scale this down by like 10% or 5 or 10%, then that's more or less what I'm envisioning size-wise. So if we can't pull this off, that's okay. I still think something like that is cool. It doesn't even have to be that extreme, not even that far out. Maybe even just like that, but something along this vein. Whatever we can achieve, it's not this exact design. And you made the wise point of bringing the tip down a bit for balance and the overall function and flow of how it works in hand. But that's what we're aiming at, and that's a little bit of the backstory to the aesthetic narrative that we're weaving into this.
To start out with, I'm going to isolate that beginning chunk of the handle, create a little L-shaped lip with whatever I can put together over there to make it work.
Never did you?
Have I ever felt like a more badass blacksmith than forging on this 30-pound hunk of bronze on this ginormous anvil.
Which, you know, this is another beautiful factor of aluminum bronze is every hammer strike actually does something. Yeah.
Immediately you can see what's going on.
Yep.
Thinking about this process, and I know I went over an order of operations of what I normally do, which is with steel. We're working with bronze. At this point, I would punch an eye hole in right there. If I do that though, it's gonna thin out all of this surrounding area of that eye hole, and that will melt while I'm trying to heat up and isolate this massive chunk. So I have to switch up my order of operations a little bit, which means I'm gonna have to be all the more careful when I set this right in here.
We should also add that this beautifully crafted hammer was made by my good buddy Philip Wolfersberger of Mother Bear Forge, also a member here at Coal Iron Works. And yeah, he did a beautiful job crafting this. And actually, we at Coal will have these available at coaliron.com in the very near future. So keep an eye out for those. These are very well made hammers. We're excited to offer them, and I know Philip is excited to make more. So check them out in due time. Anybody who's used to forging or at least has watched forging footage, you will notice that with every strike that I make, it's a very thuddy sound. It's very like dead and muffled. I mean, it being bronze, it's just, it sounds and it feels totally different than forging steel. Steel has that rebound, it has that ring. This is bronze, so it's a lot more easy on the arm, even though you do a lot more forging work. But even at this temperature, this is probably the more ideal temp to forge at, this low cherry red. There's still a lot I can do. So we are laying out a game plan of when to forge what.
Yes.
Describe that.
And the trick of right now is that we want to get this as closely forged as possible, but at some point we're gonna have to be able to flip and hold our piece from this side while we forge this blade out.
Yeah.
So we can't go all the way to exact, but we have to get this exact enough that we don't have to do a lot of work after we've done that, because this becomes a really weak point in the forging process, and I've had pieces snap and crack. I've had more issues right here than anywhere else.
Yep.
And it's because I've saved either this work or this work for after this was forged.
Yeah.
So I wait as long as possible there.
And to add further context, we don't want to refine this and make the pommel end too perfect yet, because even the steel tongs are going to grip into and they're going to mar up the bronze. So in my mind, I feel like, you know, we should get the pommel end roughly forged to shape, maybe drift that hole in now with a Coal Iron Works punch, like, you know, same ones we use for our hammer eyes. Get it rough, but then leave it rough, and then forge the blade almost to perfection, nearly so it's ready for grinding, and then go back to the pommel as maybe a last touch. So that's our plan.
What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try to get it just a little bit more.
I'm going to illustrate here without forging what we're doing. I've got a curved base plate right there. That radius is going to allow us to offset this glob so it stands above the edge, the spine of the blade. Meanwhile, this die is going to come down, and that's going to give us our finger well. I also have a kiss block on the other side that'll keep us from going too deep, right? And this is floating. You'll notice over here, I've also radiused the backside so that we don't end up with a square chunk cut out on this end of the piece, because I can't put a, you know, 18-inch or 12-inch thing on here unless I tack weld it. So this is what we're gonna do. When I bring it back, I'm gonna squish this. For this next step, I'm gonna use the Atari controller. Secret, super secret. This is a 25-ton press. I'm gonna actually just flip this over to the backside because I'm gonna operate it from the backside of the press this time. How freaking cool is that? So what we've done there is we've now got a hump on the back of our glob. We have, well, we had the sides thinned out. They squished again. We'll fix that. But we've, more importantly, got the proper finger groove in. It's not too thin. And now we got to do a bunch of cleanup work. Obviously, this is for a giant right now, so. But we will make this manageable. Don't worry, we're gonna get there.
Even with the heat that you've got, I mean, I bet you could straighten it out, like laying
Oh
it,
yeah, absolutely. Like I could do some of this right now.
Beautiful. Final thoughts?
I got no thoughts.
Lovely.
And look at what we have that's perfect. This has a consistent thickness running through the glob.
The glob.
That's the hardest part,
Yeah.
is keeping this from being too small.
Yeah.
So,
Very cool. Glob is the scholarly historical word that people use, right?
it actually is. It actually
Glob.
is. It's a globular grip is the description
Really?
in archaeological terms.
No way.
Yeah.
All right.
I wish I had just made that up, but I
Thought it was a word coined by Adventure Time cartoons, but it's historical.
Just gonna be cautious for now.
So just adding some width overall is the goal. Yep. Cool.
It's so heavy. It feels like I'm forging marshmallow. See how we've got that spot now that we can pull that down into whatever we want.
Perfect.
We're legitimately making
Yes.
a monster behemoth sword.
Love it. Beautiful. Clean up the handle area a little bit more. The majority of the glob, as Josh is calling it, in the handle, we are going to clean it up quite a bit, stock removal, but we want to get it as close to shape. A little bit of forging here and there. And again, even though this is so massive, it is amazing, isn't it, how easy it is to move this material so quickly, just because it is bronze and it's so, how did you describe it a second ago? It's like forging marshmallow?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool. We'll be able to clean a lot of that files and stock removal a bit, but I like the overall flow and shape of that. I think it's obviously way bigger than it should be.
Yeah.
The finished result, I think it looks pretty good. So
It's a vast improvement over our last bronze one.
It's probably hot enough to forge. So what I'm trying to visually decide upon with Josh is how I was just squishing it, kind of made the back flare out, and I'm wondering if we should actually utilize that into the design to where it's, I mean, it would kind of create a very modern look, but like almost this like back clip point. I don't know. It's pretty extreme. It definitely takes it even further out into the realm of like fantasy design. But what are your thoughts? I don't know if I like it. I'm just throwing it out as an option.
Connect that down to a point around here and see what happens.
What do you mean? Like if it was more of like a straight line?
Yeah, let it drop
Yeah.
and bring it down lower, because I think,
Well, that's, you know what I mean.
right. I don't dislike it. And then you end up with 1, 2, 3, and I like things in threes.
It's too wide in here. I would want it to be more, more slender.
Yeah.
But well, let me kind of do another. So okay. I don't know if I like that. For some reason, I don't. It's not bad, but it's a little bit too modern.
I think we went from riffing on the past to something that belongs in like John Carter.
Yeah,
It's a Mars weapon now.
Yeah, it's a bit much. I know some people would like it. I feel like that's a design that, but I don't like that many like peaks. Like it's unnecessary. Like every point in here has a purpose and an intention. Okay, so we're going to opt against that. So what we're going to do is just either try to forge it out, or we're going to stock removal out.
Yeah.
Grind out that back portion. So, cool. I don't want it to get too thin here. I think we should just like hand forge it in this area. I should stick the hero below. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I like it. I dig it. What I like is that it balances out where this shoots through and the tip comes out.
Yeah.
I think that will function a lot better.
In your opinion, is this too downward slope? Should it be more up?
No, that's okay. I think that's okay. You don't want this ring to drop below the cutting edge.
Yeah.
Really, you want it to be about, you want 1/3 of this whole distance between the ring and the blade edge.
Okay.
And then you want the tip, if you run a straight line through, you want the tip to reside somewhere between there on this end.
Okay.
Well, when I make the historically replicated ones, that's what I shoot for.
Okay. Cool.
I like it. I dig it.
Sweet. Me too.
I think it's pretty badass.
Oh yeah.
Inevitably, as you forge these, when you widen this here, it's going to push some material that direction. So what we have to do is we're going to place the finger well over the horn, and we will hammer this humpback right here until that knob is no longer there, and then this is in line with the spine. Let us know where we're at.
Pretty happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's looking good. We got a really nice length out of it.
I mean, we said that we were not aiming at this exact. This is overblown.
Right, you're right. That's what inevitably happens with those chalk illustrations.
Yeah. So it's good.
Yeah.
I think we need to do more refining of the profile.
There's also, let me see the top.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can see that we have a lot of meat still. We haven't done any edge beveling.
Yeah.
So we'll get a lot more out of this over the next, couple hours.
Yeah.
So we've done a lovely job forging this to shape. It's pretty close. We love it, but we got to get that hole in here. And that's what we're doing next. It's late, and my brain just dropped out during that.
That was a pretty good idea, if I do say so myself. Yeah.
It's perfect.
Sweet.
That's great.
explain what you were just saying, like checking?
So one of the things that I look for to be able to tell if that center hole on in the pommel lines up with the tip is when you hang it on a peg, does that point go toward the floor? Sometimes you'll find that they go off-centered this way, or it might hang more that way, but this one is actually headed in a very good direction.
Cool.
So this tells me that we're on track for what we wanted to perform like.
Sweet. So here is where we've got it after pretty much a full day of forging, and we're pretty proud of it. I love it. Obviously pretty rough, and a lot of extreme hammer blows and textures that we want to work out and refine, kind of planish the whole surface, but also some more substantial forging, mainly in the, what do you keep calling this thing? The technical term, the glob. the kind of bulbous center points of the grip. We want to work that down a bit. I mean, I like the profile shape overall, but I think it's a bit too thick, so a couple squeezes from that in terms of the thickness would, I think, make the grip a lot more comfortable. Of course, quite a bit of stock removal we're going to do to smoothen everything out, refine it, make it, actually pretty comfortable to hold. Yeah, we decided to add a kind of an extreme ring-like texture. It worked out, sort of. It was both intentional and unintentional, but we're rolling with it. We might have to modify the design a little bit. Overall, really like it. I think we can get a little bit more refinement out of the blade if we forge it tomorrow, and then move on to the kind of stock removal, profiling steps of the process. I would like to forge in the cutting edges pretty close to shape, get a little bit more width out of the blade overall, which also helps with a natural work hardening of the bronze. And then, of course, we'll go over that kind of refined cutting bevel that we'll forge in with a nice, smooth, flat, shiny, polished cutting edge that we'll add on my 2x72 belt grinder. But I think it's a pretty solid day's worth of work right here, and proud of how it's looking. So we'll come back in the shop first thing tomorrow and get back to work on it.
Welcome to day 2. We're back. We got a big bronze monster. After having slept on it, we realized there's some refinements we have to do. We're gonna start with this part right here. We're going to pinch a little more that way, pinch a little more this way, pinch a little more that way, pinch a little more that way, and if you're lost, so am I. And then we're actually gonna grind this remaining hump. I feel like we did a really good job of forging that down, but at this point we're just gonna cut that off. After we get this settled, we're gonna come down here and we are going to risk forging the fuller in. I think this is gonna be challenging.
We changed our mind.
We did, yeah. Yep, I think we do like the idea of that. That'll give us just a little bit more width as well. And then after we get that in, we'll forge bevels, and I think actually we'll be pretty close to done at that point, and it'll be mostly grinding. Yeah. And then coming back through and then work hardening it a bit. And yeah, exactly. Quick status update. We got an idea for forging in the fullers. We have temporarily rigged something up. Now, these are dies that are not currently being sold by Cole, but they will be. David is working on figuring out what the spacing and everything needs to be before we do that. In the meantime, we have set a block that allows it to come down without over squishing, so we don't actually squish through, while also keeping it aligned with where we have the spine, so we will get an even fuller all the way down. So this is gonna be fun and interesting, but it's gonna look beautiful. I trust Dave. I'm gonna actually let him do that part, but I am gonna do that other part we talked about earlier with the squishing and moving of these in here and then a little bit there, and then I'm gonna turn it over to him. Forge tab.
it's important at this part to keep this off the face of the anvil.
So that's a good start.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is looking good.
So, we have a video that you guys just saw, at least minutes ago, of us saying that we didn't want to do a fuller, and that we definitely didn't want to do that kind of peak effect that you might, well, all that to say, we're not doing it. It's just the way it's kind of developed and changed, and that's all right, because projects like this have a mind of their own, and the metal flows, and you just decide on the cuff. But we still got a couple decisions. I'm still on the fence. I mean, I designed this, but I'm still on the fence of whether we even want to do this like two-pronged guard. Maybe it's too extreme or too aggressive. I mean, I kind of like this, not quite that low, you know what I mean? But so that's one decision. But more immediately, obviously, we forged in a fuller. I mean, this is fairly accurate. It's not this wide, and our fuller's a bit longer down the blade. But so the fuller is there, and I'm pretty happy with how the fuller looks. We're gonna go on and refine that fuller a little bit more. But what it has naturally done is it has swelled it out. And that's a bit extreme, but and I actually like it. I'm not gonna lie, like, I kind of like, this is of course not exact as it is. Yeah. Maybe you can just hold it up to show. I am curious, and I do wonder, yeah. You know, I'm kind of a fan of just this natural swell that you see here. But a more aggressive shape would be, like we talked about before, is having it kind of come to a point. Now that would involve us kind of beveling the back, being a little bit more aggressive and forging along here, you know. Yeah. People who are watching this, obviously at this point,
it's too late to vote. It's too late to vote.
This isn't a live stream. I keep wanting to ask the viewers.
But tell us anyhow.
Yeah.
In the comments.
Speak through the cosmos. Maybe we'll hear
your... You guys made the biggest mistake when you put that peak in.
Yes, exactly. We'll hear your votes through time and space.
I love just how close we got.
Yeah, it is. Chalk. It is very close. Yeah. I mean, this is way wider. What do you think? It sounds like you are on the side of us doing this. You are pro pointed peak, if you want to word it that way.
Yeah. I love things in threes, and we have 1, 2, 3, and so this goes together.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have a fourth there, which kind of gives it that
like golden ratio kind of stuff going on, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And if we're
Oh, you're expecting me to read runes right now? Oh yes, that's right. This is a conversation that's not on camera.
You maybe edit this out.
No, I love it. Hell yeah. Hell yes. This is what we've decided the narrative.
Then we also have the 3 ends of the cross.
There you go.
1, 2, 3 conceptually.
Ooh, there you go.
With the stake at the end.
Even though this is not only pre-cross,
this is
pre-flood in my mind.
Yeah. But God knew this was happening.
Oh, sure, of course.
Yeah.
This is so historical, clearly.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm not opposed to. I'm not opposed to the sharp peak. Let me.
We even have we've got a really cool right now. It's such a funky shape that comes down.
Oh, that's. Yeah. This.
I think we're running a little more like.
Yeah, I like ours more
do.
than the sketch because ours has more of that an S shape.
Yeah.
And I actually want to maintain that S shape. Yes. And shout out, credit to a friend of ours in the craft, Jeff Helms. Definitely anybody watching this, go check out Jeff's work on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, because Jeff recently did it's an Iron Age Danish bog. It's got to be like a sibling cousin related to the design aesthetic of these. I don't even know what you would call it. It's like an antenna hilt, single edge, Danish bog, either Iron Age or Bronze Age. Beautiful wonky blade. Yeah. And it very much has that similar S shape to it. If you go to his page, if you're watching this in the next few months or so, you'll find it. But I find it very evocative, inspiring, and it was something we weren't originally using as inspiration on this piece, but it has that kind of S shape that I really like. So I'm not opposed. I think we should aim at doing this. For some reason, I'm almost falling out of love with the whole 2-prong effect. Maybe I'll change my mind once we forge in the bevels and refine the fuller and forge this in. Mm-hmm. But I'm almost more of a fan of the simple guard area. So those are our thoughts. I would love to say, let us know what you think in the comments below, but by this point you're watching this, it's probably already to shape. But that's where we're at in the process. All right, so after 2 very full days and late evenings here in the shop, a lot of forging, a lot of work at the KMG Beaumont grinder, we have this beautiful, beastly bronze monstrosity of a sword. I don't even know what we would classify this thing as. We knew we'd have a lot of fun and make something fantastic when we got together, but I love this way more than I thought I would. Really proud of the work we put in. Now, it's not 100% finished. The sword itself, the forging is done. We put a nice patina on it, and it has that nice old worldy, ancient aesthetic look, but if you know Josh's work and you know mine, you know that we love to pour narrative story into every piece we make, and so we want to cover this thing in not too much, but just the right amount of tasteful ornamentation that kind of, again, is reflective of some ancient historical designs, but also has our own flair added to it, because this is not a historical blade, historically inspired with a mythic flair, and I love it.
I really do enjoy that. We had a piece that inspired the build. When I look at this, I see the main elements of that in this,
Yeah.
which is great. I really like the storyline that we've been talking
Yeah.
about over the last couple days, and I can't wait for you to all find out, which won't happen in this video.
Yeah.
So you have to keep watching.
If you want to see how this thing is completely finished off, both in the ornamentation we add to it, and then inevitably we got to make a scabbard.
Yeah.
Probably a display case. I mean, we want this to be an heirloom piece. We'll probably have it at Blade Show, and I know I will be there with my good friends at Coal Iron Works at the Coal Iron booth, most likely with this thing, and you will be as well.
We'll be there as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we want to be showing this off in person and sharing it online, and maybe even putting it up for sale. So if you want to see how this thing is finished off, then be sure and follow me on Instagram at Cedarlore. And of course, I'm going to be sharing a lot more details with my patrons. You can find my Patreon community. It's a like-minded group of friends and allies, fellow craftsmen, and a lot of bladesmiths, and we share our knowledge. It's not just me. I'll be sharing a lot of the behind the scenes on how I add decorations to this, and Josh and I continue to work on it. And where can people find your website? And of course, a big note, Josh is teaching classes, so if you've watched all the way through this, you gotta visit the Bavarian blacksmith shop. Is that the way, right?
Yeah. In Frankenmuth, Michigan. It's in a German-themed town. Started with my wife a blacksmith shop up there.
Yeah.
And you can take various levels of classes from absolute beginner. If you have zero experience, we actually kind of cater toward that. So if you're interested and you think you might want to like or get into or try swinging a hammer at some hot steel, it's the perfect place to go.
Absolutely.
So, and you can find, follow me, it's at Josh A. Weston on Instagram, Twitter, blah, 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 all those places.
So thank you guys for watching along on this journey of us forging this very unique, very odd, beastly weapon that we love, we're proud of. If you want to find the links to any of the products that we featured and showed in the video, then be sure to check out the links below here in this video on YouTube. And of course, visit coaliron.com and to see the whole lineup of presses that we have to offer. We definitely could not have forged this thing without the help of some coal iron presses in the shop. But thank you guys for watching. This was a blast. Be sure and of course, like and subscribe and follow along because there is many more coal iron collaborative projects. We'll do more with Josh as well. If he behaves himself, we're gonna have him back and we're gonna do a lot of more cool projects. But thank you guys for watching. Take care, God bless, peace.